Hey guys, it's Melissa Morrow with Vintage Bee Design, and today I have a bunch of makeovers for you. I needed to update some of my home staging inventory, and we're going to treat this as if it were a thrift flip, and I'm going to show you how to update some old home decor. We have been staging fools lately, and some of the remnants that are on the shelf is just stuff we don't want to grab. Metallics used to be popular a few years ago, and as you can see, we've kept very good care of them, but they just aren't pieces that any of us want to use anymore. So I thought that I would work to get these into condition that actually makes it interesting. I've started off by giving everything 2 solid coats of Dixie Belle's buttercream. Okay, so I painted a bunch of pieces with Dixie Belle's buttercream the other night, and then before I left, I sprayed it with a top coat because a polyacrylic top coat because I didn't want to have the chance of them distressing when I came back to do the next step. And I kind of forgot, because it's been a while since I've done metallics, that a lot of times when you do metallics, it's like having wood. It bleeds through. So as soon as you don't see it when you're painting, but when you add that top coat, it sort of reacts to it and you end up with the metallics bleeding through. So now I've got a choice as to how I want to handle this, because there is at least somewhere on each of these where you can see that copper bleeding through. And again, this is very common. Had I thought about it, I would have used Dixie Belle's Boss, or I could have sprayed it with shellac or something to keep that from happening. But here is where I am. Now I have some options. These are going to be staging props. I am not planning on selling them, so they don't have to be exactly as perfect. Nobody's going to be looking closely at them and deciding to put them in their home. We're just going to use them for props. So I've got some choices to make. I can either go spray them with shellac, or I can do a dry brush, or spray them with shellac and then repaint them. I can dry brush. There's a bunch of different things I can do. So I'm going to sit here for a minute and kind of decide what I'm going to do. I had a plan for these worked out, but now my plans, I think, have changed slightly. So give me a minute and I will figure this out. For me, these jars were all about the texture, so adding some Hurricane Gray as a dry brush seemed like an easy solution. After all, really, I wanted the texture to pop on these, and dry brush is the perfect way to do that anyway. Whenever you're going to dry brush, it's very important that you have minimal paint on your brush, hence the term dry brush. And then you want to work typically in one direction, although with the way that the patterning is on these, I'm going to go in both directions. And you just want to barely put any paint on your surface. That way it hovers on the upper layer and doesn't get down into the crevices of the lower layer. After I've done one coat of dry brush on all of them with my Hurricane Gray, then I go back and actually let that dry and go back with the buttermilk and do it again over it. That will soften the gray and actually add a little bit more depth. Now I'm taping off the bottoms in sort of a random way, but I'm trying to keep the tape pretty level. And I am going to use that Hurricane Gray and paint a stripe on the lower portion, but I'm trying to make sure that it is not completely filled in. So I'm kind of going to do like a heavy dry brush. You can see with this one, I'm actually using my large JRV stencil brush this way and hitting a pouncing motion. This way it's not solid and it has a little bit of a different texture than the rest of the vase did. And then there's nothing quite like the satisfaction of pulling the tape off and having perfectly straight lines across the bottom. I definitely could have stopped here. These came out really lovely, and that crisp line at the bottom is perfect. But I don't know, you guys know me, I'm just not into pristine all of that well. I didn't want to distress these because I didn't want to bring back the copper. And dark wax would have been an option, but honestly, it wasn't the look I was going for. So I'm going to go to one of my favorites, and that is DIY's Decrepit Dust. And I'm going to use some easy peasy Dixie Belle spray wax and basically sprinkle the Decrepit Dust over my vase. And you're going to see I'm able to pull out a lot of highlights and texture and really emphasize all of that yumminess and make this a little bit of rusty, crusty, vintage out of this once shiny, shiny, shiny. I want to sing crab shiny song from Moana. If anybody knows that song, it's what's going on in my head as I'm painting this whole entire time. And at first I was trying to keep things really light-handed and dabbing it on with a paper towel. But then, yeah, the normal side of me who really wants it to dig that crusty in there decided to go for the stencil brush. I could not. And really, I think the stencil brush gives me a little bit more control, but it was able to give me the look that I wanted to really dig it into those little holes and highlight around I shouldn't say highlight, but add that decrepit dust really around the edges so that the edges and the top were particularly crusty. I am going to let the camera roll here so you can actually see my technique. I could edit this out, but I know a lot of people haven't used decrepit dust before, and so I just want you to see my technique, kind of how I build this out and achieve the look that I do.
I see something, it's coming up on the horizon. Oh, let me clear my head and get rid of the distractions. Oh, I was down when I saw you in the clouds. Out of phase, filled with doubt. I was drifting in and out, levitate, fade away. I had left full time and space, but you.
Now I'm basically going to go ahead and repeat the same technique on all of my vases. Again, I'm going to show a little bit of this around the top of the vase because the technique is a little bit different as I'm really going for a heavier build out. So I want to let you see the technique.
Hey, nah. Please won't you come over? Let me get to know ya. Hey, nah. Delve into emotion. Leave us in this moment. Let your mind be free. Stop holding back 'cause you can fight it. Oh, I don't know your name, but something in me has ignited. Oh, I was down when I saw you in the clouds. Out of phase, filled with doubt. I was drifting in and out, levitate, fade away. I had left full time and space, but you just caught my eye. Hey, nah. Please won't you come over? Let me get to know ya.
Okay, here is the before and after. Remember, these were super, super shiny. And none of the stagers wanted to grab them anymore. The time of the metallics is gone. Now they are beautiful, rusty, crusty neutrals. They're going to be able to work in almost any house we have to stage. And I'm wondering if you can tell the difference in using the decrepit dust versus a dark wax, and how I really have a lot more control and how it creates these layers of depth and really gets in there with that sort of dusty crustiness that is very different from a wax. I would love to hear your feedback in the comments. Did you like this makeover, and are they pieces you'd like to have? So with these, we had these that were also quite shiny and metallic. And it's interesting because we actually had a mate to these that everybody uses. It was nice and earthy and a little taller. So my goal is to make these two work together. I did this by, once again, painting these shiny metallic vases with 2 coats of buttercream. And then I'm going to give it using that hurricane again, a nice soft dry brush, mostly around the base to really catch the different shapes here. And then I will do it gently on the top. just as before, the goal here is to make the piece look a little bit aged and really show off all of the texture. One nice thing about using chalk paint is it does create a lot of texture, and the dry brushing really shows that off. Here you can see I'm starting to blend the original piece that we had, the taller one, right in with this newly painted one. And just as the other pieces went, I'm going to use my go-to of Easy Peasy Spray Wax and DIY's Decrepit Dust in order to create some fun, authentic looking vintage. And this is going to give it that rusty, crusty, uneven look. It's really hard to get this uneven, dusty look with a dark wax or a brown wax. So this really is my secret sauce. And one thing to note when you're using the Decrepit Dust and the Easy Peasy Spray Wax is that not only can you wipe it down to sort of take away some of it, but you can also, just like you would use clear wax with a dark wax, you can respray the Easy Peasy Spray Wax and work it in a little better and kind of use it as an eraser. So these two really work well together. You could use a traditional clear wax or brown wax or dark wax with the Decrepit Dust, but I find that the Easy Peasy Spray Wax is my favorite. And as I'm showing you the manufactured one and mine, you can see that the manufactured one also is using something like the Decrepit Dust to create that same look. So I'm really happy with how these came out. Well, what do you think? Did I take them from this bright, shiny copper again into using my secret sauce, adding that rusty, crusty goodness into something that, again, is functional for every house that we stage if we wanted to, especially as we're bringing a lot of that more contemporary farmhouse. Does it match the other piece? Do they work together? I think they came out great. Let me know what you think. So these next ones are, I'm not really sure. The wood grain here is super orange. I think we bought them in desperation. I know we bought them on sale at like 75% off at the at-home store. And I think I'm just showing you kind of, this was in, everything was base painted. But on these little gray jars, I just painted right over the orange and tried to keep it consistent with the main line that it already had. And then I tried to keep most of it off the gray and keep nice clean lines. And then I'm just going to come back the next day and use Windex and clean up anything that was sort of splattered onto the shinier gray area. It comes off really easy. This was a fast and easy makeover. But I have to say, I never really liked the shiny part of it. And so once I am done, I put 2 coats once again of the buttercream. And once I'm done cleaning up all the overspray, if you will, I'm going to take it back into the spray area. And I'm going to apply 2 coats of polyacrylic with a mat. And what's going to do is this is going to really tone down that, again, super shiny. I feel like the theme of today is goodbye shiny and hello matte. Yeah, we want things that are a little more earthy these days. These were great staging props for a long time that I got at a really good price and used them for a few years. But now that orangey wood grain is just horrible and they sit on the shelf. I'm going to say we only pull them out of desperation. So I am using my Windex too to clean up a little bit of that line where it wasn't perfectly straight. I did eventually find a razor blade that made cleaning off the rest of these a little bit easier. But my goal is just to get all of the overpaint, the flecking that I did from painting other pieces that sort of splattered onto these, get it all nice and cleaned up. So again, just 2 nice level coats. Let the first one dry in between, and this is going to be matte, and it's really going to tone down that shine. And it's interesting. I don't know if it happened because it was really cold in the warehouse or if underneath the glaze, if there was actually some crackling. But I noticed when I was spraying, and then you could really see it afterwards. If you look closely, you can kind of see it happening now, that it started picking up some crackle in the glaze, and it really shows in the after photos. I certainly didn't do that on purpose. I don't know how it happened. I'm not sure what caused it, but I think it came out really cool. And I'm a fan of crackle anything pretty much. And I like how it really transformed, again, the modern shininess of these to something a little bit more farmhouse, a little bit more vintage looking, way less modern. So yeah, a quick look at where we started. These sort of orangey, modern, wood-turned vases with that shiny glaze. They look so much prettier with this buttercream. And look at that cracking. That's what I was talking about. I don't know what caused it. Again, I don't know if it was under the surface crack. The other one didn't do it. Only that one did it. So I don't know if there's cracks under the surface or if it happened because it was cold, but I adore it. And so it's kind of cool that I ended up with 3 unique looks on these different vases. I am so pleased that I went ahead and sprayed them with the matte afterwards. Not only did it give me that beautiful cracking, but it also really toned down that gray and made it so pretty. What do you think? And so working at the warehouse this weekend, working on doing some makeovers, I actually got a few other pieces done that I had intended to put in with this video, but we're getting a little long and I have a really big announcement that I'm going to make tomorrow on my channel. So I think I'm going to save these makeovers on these pieces for tomorrow and you'll get to see exactly how I created these. And stay tuned. You are going to want to see my video tomorrow because you're going to want to hear this big announcement. I have been dying to tell you all about it, but you're going to have to wait until Monday. Sorry. I will release the video Monday afternoon with these makeovers and my big announcement. I will see you then. Bye.